So for my reflection, I am going to talk about Wordsworth versus Lord Byron. I'm doing this in an audio format just because I think it um is easier to articulate my thoughts, and sometimes they can build on each other in ways that it doesn't translate well on paper. Um, so I hope everything I say makes sense and is concise, and I've done the work, and I hope this proves it. So yeah, so just very briefly why I chose Wordsworth and Byron. Ba like edit basically just quickly is that they were the two things we read that I enjoyed the most, and luckily they were in the two different time period or like the early and the later, so made it easy for me. So early poet Williams Wordsworth, who was 1770 to 1850, was when he was alive. Um, the first poem that I'm going to talk about is lines composed a few miles above the Tintern Abbey, and I'll just read the portion of it that I chose to talk about. These boisterous forms through a long absence have not been to me as the landscape to a man's eye, but often the lonely rooms and mid the din of towns and cities I've owed to them. In hours of weariness, sensation sweet, felt in blood and felt in the long heart, and passing even into my purer mind with tranquil restoration, feeling too of unremembered pleasures, such perhaps as have no sight or trivial influence on the best portion of a good man's life, his little nameless unremembered acts of kindness and love. I was absent from class the day we discussed this poem, which was very disappointing. So that's another reason I chose to talk about it. Because I'm very drawn to the way Wordsworth writes because as I showed in class, Taylor Swift wrote a song inspired by him, and I think she draws a lot of inspiration for him. So as someone who enjoys her music, I very much enjoy his writing because it's clear that he is someone she is inspired by, which is really cool that an artist in the 21st century is making popular music inspired by William Wordsworth. What is this portion saying? Um, so Wordsworth is saying that while surrounded by an urban setting that's full of noise and a feeling of loneliness, he remembers his this beautiful place, which I'd assume is Tintern Abbey, though it's not addressed by name in the poem. And it helps him through a trying time where he's not doing well, bringing him good feelings and good memories of this beautiful place that he is imagining and escaping to in his mind, which is something I think is quite a universal feeling. These memories help him feel calm and restored, and they even inspire him to be a better person. Like that last line, his little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. I think that's just such a beautiful way to say that. Like nameless and unremembered acts, it's the small things that can make somebody's day, or like can it's just or like a small act of love or a small act of kindness. There's just like I work at a grocery store, and when somebody like puts the barcode face up when they're giving me an item, that's a little thing that makes my day. And I don't know if they think twice about it, but that's kind of what I interpret him saying, that these little acts of kindness and love either are something that he notices more and can appreciate more, or things that he is putting out into the world more. So, we also know that Wordsworth is infatuated by nature. A lot of his poems are about nature more than they're about people, unlike Lord Byron, who we'll talk about in a moment. But I think this poem almost personifies a place into a loved one, into someone that you're infatuated by. So yeah, I really love this whole poem, and I'm I could have talked about the entire thing for much longer, but I'll continue on, not beat a dead horse. So the late poet I'm going to discuss is George Gordon Byron, Lord Byron, who was alive from 1788 to 1824. When we discussed this poem in class, you may remember me saying that I loved it until I understood the context of it. Um, because of Lord Byron's promiscuous life, it made the poem feel a bit disgenuine to me. But I'm going to talk about it as if I don't know that a little bit. So I'll just read it very quickly. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in the aspects of her eyes, thus mellowed to the tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. On shade the more, one ray the less, half the impaired in the nameless grace which waves in every raven's tress, or softly lightens over her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. On the cheek and over that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win the tints that glow, but tell of days and goodness spent. A mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. I love this poem. I really do love it. And I think now maybe having a bit of time separated from learning about who he was and coming back to this poem, I think I can like learn to like love it again. And in this, he's talking about a person and their physical beauty and talking about her eyes and her hair and her heart. And I think he does so in such a beautiful way. I love the last line, I heart whose love is innocent. I love the concept of innocent love, where you just love to love. You know, like children love so many things. They love a stuffed animal, an inanimate object with their whole entire being. And I think the concept of innocent love is something that we lose in adulthood. And I think the way that he talks about it just kind of shows how he was feeling, whether he was in love or in lust, but he's not talking about his how he loves this person. He's talking about how beautiful they are. Um, so we don't know, but he's talking about her love, and her love is innocent, assuming this is a woman, because I believe he was the one who was bisexual. Um, it does say her, so yes, it's about a woman. But yeah. So the way, so why are they grouped together? Um, I think the romantic poets have a lot of similarities in the way they write. Even if like let's take Wordsworth and Byron, for example. They're fundamentally pretty different people in the way that they chose to live their lives, but that didn't that doesn't make their writing far off. And I'm sure you could pick one William Wordsworth work and one Lord Byron work, and they could be the ends of the spectrum and it's totally and completely different to each other. But for the purposes of my argument, I'm talking about these two. Um, they obviously, so the romantic poets all grouped together. They're clearly writing during the same times. Most of them knew each other or were inspired by each other. Um, like Keats was influenced by Shelley, and Lord Byron's um acts of rebellion, I guess, could not contrasted with Wordsworth's more thoughtful nature. But and I believe he was the one where that wasn't too fond of Wordsworth. I hope I'm remembering that correctly. But I think the way they juxtapose each other but still have these works, they're fairly similar. The general content is different, but they're both about beauty and they're both about nature. Even in Lord Byron's, he's comparing her eyes to the sky and her hair raven black, which a raven's a bird, and nature plays a big part in both of these works, and the works of this era in general. And they've also just like left a legacy. So to end this, I'm gonna talk about the preface to the lyrical ballads. And I think um at its core, a lot of these writers followed a lot of these principles that were laid out. The poems uh was to choose incidents and situations of common life to relate or describe them throughout as far as possible in selections of language really used by men. They're digestible. You can read them in 2024 and you understand it. It's not a faraway Shakespearean type writing where if you just had a person who's not very like versed in English read Shakespeare, it might make no sense. It's not like that. You could anyone can read these poems and hold on to something because of the language used. And from such verses of poems in these volumes will be found distinguished at least by one mark of difference, that each of them has a worthy purpose. I think whether you think these writings have a purpose, I think all of the people who are writing them wrote them with purpose. And I think there has been times in history, and this can be argued, where writing was to write to be respected, to write to be adored, to write to be all these things that maybe wasn't to write with a purpose, write with your heart. So I think bringing it back to the preface to the lyrical ballads, which kind of in my seem to have set up a lot of this era and a lot of the way that people thought about writing. Um, so yeah, I hope that wasn't too all over the map. And I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. I just look horrible right now, but I'm really enjoying your class so far. I have adored everything we've learned, and thank you.